up in my corner, and oh, I think it says that we're live. Yeah. All right. Welcome everybody back to our live Healing Place podcast conversations. And I'm just really thrilled today to have with me Jim Sporleder. So welcome, Jim.
Well, thank you. It's great to be
Yes.
here.
We were just chatting a bit before I hit the go live button about some, not so much the self-care aspect of it, but the other care part of it. And I was talking about my mom and how yesterday was a rough day for her and she was crying. She's 84 in a little retirement village, but they're all isolated to their own apartments, to their own spaces, and they're not supposed to open the door for each other. And so she started crying. I miss going out and I miss my friends, and broke my heart. I said, Mom, I'll come stand outside the window and, wave to you and wear my masks and gloves. So she got all worried. No, don't you leave your house. Don't you leave your house. So anyway, so yeah, so let's talk a little bit about pandemic self-care or other care.
Well, one thing that I noticed is how exhausted I was once I was forced to stop. I've been on a pretty intense schedule. I was out over 150 days last year, and so at first it felt good to get some rest. And the self-care piece has been, when you're on the road, is really a challenge. And I'm a walker, and usually I'm scheduled so tight that I'm in and out of places, and we're just coming out of winter, so a lot of the places I was at wasn't conducive for me to get outside. So trying to balance that, and then when I get home, try to get my walking in, and your diet on the road and all that. So I've been able to take this time, a lot of reflection, just time to express my gratitude, and exercising every day. I'm actually getting out and doing a little bit of hiking, and so that part has helped me with the self-care piece. But it always weighs heavily on my heart, those who are stuck at home, and maybe somebody isn't looking out after them.
Yeah.
I'm really concerned with our students of trauma.
Yes.
I know our educational system's doing the best that they can, but packets and computers don't provide the connection piece that these kids need. And so
right.
I've had some Zooms with some school districts, and we've talked about that, of how can we amongst staff make sure that we're calling and making connection with these kids, so that it's not just a packet or a online assignment.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I've seen a couple really cool things on, at least on my social media feeds, of personal friends who are teachers and or in the school systems.
Uh-huh.
And some of them are creating for kids that they know are getting their meals at school,
Yeah.
and are home now, and possibly not having healthy choices. So they've collected what, on their front porch, like drop stuff off, so then they don't have to connect with people, and then they're making these baggies filled and making sure somehow that they're getting to the kids. I'm not quite sure how they're doing it, maybe through the school. And then another teacher that I saw who teaches at high school did Zoom with her kids, like through their phones, and they had a big group, like the class, um, which I thought was really cool too, just for those kids to have connection and see one another. um, Even through, I mean, I know it's not a personal connection, but it's just to see somebody's face. Like I love seeing your face today. I haven't talked to you in a while, and so it's just nice to see a smiling face.
That I think it might be a good idea, Teri, if you were able to share some of those. I mean, old people like me aren't as technology and enhance and for that high school teacher to be able to pull her class in together as a Zoom, that's the first time I've heard of that. And wow.
Yeah.
To give some teachers some ideas on what they can be doing. That's a tremendous idea.
Yeah, I will. And actually, one of the teachers at my daughter, she's in elementary school, and one of the teachers there did, and I don't know if she reached out to parents and said, "Hey, if it's okay, let's get and they brought some kids together as well." And again, it just was so. The parents were just like, "Oh my gosh, my kid was so impacted by this. What a great idea."
Yes.
So yeah, I will. Thanks. I'll put that out there.
It's a wonderful idea.
Okay. Yeah, I love it. And
Who,
I'll check
who
with them.
needs it the most? Sometimes it's the kids that maybe it's a release, not to deal with the stress every day with some of these kids,
Yeah.
but yet they're the ones that would really benefit from that kind of contact. And
Yeah.
I think that's a really neat idea.
Well, thanks. And I thought it was too. And I just remember sitting back and thinking, oh, that's so powerful, because like you and I have discussed, and I know this is what you talk about so often in your trauma informed care work and in the work you did as a principal, with these kids that, yeah, like you said, are touched by trauma. I mean, they're trauma kids. I don't know what the definition is, but yeah, they've had adverse childhood experiences in their lives, and or they're still in the midst of it.
Mhm.
And that I have another friend of mine who works with the hashtag one caring adult, and wow, what a powerful impact that one caring adult. But if you're suddenly yanked away from that one caring adult, such as so many of these kids are, from a teacher or a principal or who a coach, yeah, that's tough.
That I would say, since I've been out of the system and working from outside in now, it's been such a huge learning curve for me, and the learning just continues. But one thing that I've seen is the power of what you just shared. If I was able to go back, it would be, how could I have handed off my seniors to a caring hand outside of the school? Because that one caring adult plays such a huge impact and helps our kids maneuver through our systems. And without that, I've just seen with my alumni kids, those who have connected or stayed connected with a caring adult, whether it's one of their teachers or they have somebody in their life that kind of watches their back, that they're hanging in there, or they're doing extremely well. And some who were doing very well at Lincoln that have allowed themselves to fade away from that caring adult, they're struggling. And it just is a reminder to me of the power of that, being that one caring adult for these kids.
Yeah. There's just, I know the one caring adult that stands out in my mind was my grandmother, but it was that sense of worthiness. Like I was worthy. I was valued. My voice mattered. That is huge. It matters. I mean, it's just so powerful for a kid who is either in currently or has experienced trauma. Yeah.
Another thing that I've learned, and you're more of an expertise than I, is that we work so hard to build the resilience with these kids through the caring adult relationships, but I really have come to learn that ACEs and the wounds can be healed, but the wound is still there.
Right.
And the wound can flare up from time to time. And even though we have some resiliency skills, it doesn't mean that wound doesn't surface from time to time, and hopefully we're prepared to deal with it. But another one of my learnings is with my kids, my alumni kids, and the lesson that I try to teach them is, even though they have built some real resiliency, is that when they get into a very tough situation, the only model they have is that which they were brought up in, which is to freeze. So my mission with a lot of my alumni kids has been to know it's okay to ask for help early, not at the last minute, the day before you're going to be evicted, or the day before the lights are going to go out. It is that there are people that want to help you, but we need time, and that's been kind of a mission of mine with my alumni kids, is saying, hey, it's okay to ask, and there's people who want to help, but man, when they get in that freeze mode, because that's what they saw their parents doing during that time, not knowing what to do, and as you know, then all of a sudden, bam, I'm right up on that eviction date, or I'm up on that, my electricity's going off, or it puts a tremendous amount of stress on them.
As a freezer myself, that was my MO, was I freeze. And yeah, it does. I totally get what you're saying. And I also think the helping part of it is fascinating, because I think so many of us who experience trauma got into the pattern, the habit, the mentality of, I'll just do it myself. I'll do it myself. And then it's hard to ask for help.
Yeah.
Because we've just, well, we can do it. We've always had to do it. And so then we reach that point, and then it's, oh, well, I have to ask for help. But one of my friends gave me a beautiful gift a couple of weeks ago when I was approved for the funding through Fractured Atlas. And I sat there and I sat staring at it for 2 weeks, because I was like, I can't ask people for help. I can't ask people to help me support this. You know, I just, again, it was that mentality. And I reached out to a couple of different friends, and he came back and he said, Teri, people believe in you. They want to help you. You're taking away that gift of someone wanting to help, because it is a gift to help others. Think about how you feel when you're helping others. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's a really good way to think about it, is that that's a gift that I'm giving others by opening myself up and allowing them to help. So, yeah.
That's a great example. I have a small foundation, and one of my mentors ran a huge foundation here in town, and that's what he shared with me, is ask people for funds to help fund in the foundation. And it's interesting you brought that up, because here I am saying ask, and yet for me it was I just couldn't ask for money. And finally, through his mentoring and guiding, and we put a letter together, and he helped me with that, and we have a couple funders in the community, and they came back to him and said, thank you so much for letting us know that there was a need, and we appreciated being able to contribute. So sometimes we forget about that, and it's a good reminder.
Yeah. Well, thanks. And again, that gives me hope too, that yeah, there are people out there saying, I want to help. And yeah, so just that sometimes there's still a lot of people who really don't know that there's these needs out there. So yeah, very beautiful. So any other self-care or other care strategies? We haven't really talked a lot about other care. A lot on these lives. We've been talking a lot about self-care strategies. So I like it that you and I have tapped a little more into the other care, which is caring for these kids who might be hurting or struggling.
Yeah, a couple of the schools that I was able to have a Zoom with before they were completely shut down, but we knew it was coming. A chance to speak to their leadership team, and that was my challenge, was as a support staff, is to come up with strategies. We were talking as a SDAC group, and we canceled our conference, but we were talking, and I thought Rebecca brought up a really good point, and she said, with our schools right now, you still have that sense of accountability, got to hold these kids accountable to their work. And, you know, and I've even talked to a couple of teacher friends who've said, you know, man, how am I going to hold them accountable to their packets or to do the online assignments? And I thought Rebecca brought up such a powerful point. She says, why wouldn't we focus on less than more? In other words, why wouldn't we focus on how the kids are coping, how they're doing? You know, those that are capable of doing the packets and the online learning, they're going to kind of take care of themselves, and they're going to have the support at home to see that that's done. But how do you relieve the pressure off those kids that are going to feel so overwhelmed by being stuck at home, but also being overwhelmed with how am I going to get this done, or that sense of failure with nobody alongside them to help walk them through it? And I thought that statement, less, maybe focus on more or less than more. I thought that was a very insightful statement.
Yeah, and beautiful. And that's the things we don't like to think about as a society, but there's kids that their priorities are how are they going to eat?
Yes.
You know, if they're being abused, how they're getting through a day of physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, you know, how, and that sensation of feeling trapped, because so many times school is a safe space, is a place of escape from an environment that, yeah. And how do we help their caregivers who are very stressed so that they can help their children rather than hurt their children?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good point. I think as if we can come up with strategies of contacting our kids, we know who the struggling kids are. It's no secret.
Right.
I mean, obviously there's some quiet ones, but if we're trying to contact all of our kids just to check in, but especially those that we know could be struggling, what a great question is to ask mom and dad, how are things going? So that they know we're thinking about them. That would be a wonderful opportunity to build some relationship there that,
Yeah.
when it starts back up, it could really,
Yeah, that just got goosebumps on my arm, because I thought, you know, if we can ask the parents or the caregivers, do you need anything? What's your biggest priority right now? And if they, right, if the electricity, I mean, I think a lot of energy companies are not turning off electricity, but if they're scared about having no money, or they're scared about having no food, yeah, take that relief off, or at least reach out. There's so many people. So I love seeing all the helpers out there willing to help out. And then you can put word out and say, hey, we have this family that's struggling. And I'm, you know, it would be great. Yeah.
You know, Brooke, who was my intervention specialist at Lincoln, had one of the most powerful statements that she made, and I've never forgotten it, is she says, I made my relationships with parents on the porch. And she shared that when she went out to make those connections, that's when she found out they were out of food.
Yeah.
And you know, at our conference at SDAC, we really cover the poverty piece. And we have a panel of parents. SDAC has one of the highest percentages in the country of moving single moms of poverty into middle class. And they do that through matching a caring adult mentor with each one of those moms. And that mentor goes out and says, I don't know how we're going to do it, but all I can do is promise you that if we stick it out together, we're going to get there. And to hear the stories from these moms, I mean, I tear up every single time.
I know, you're getting me choked up, and I haven't even heard the story.
I mean, you hear these moms saying, you know, on this panel that they're sharing with the educators, when you call me and I screamed at you, it's not that I don't want my child to do well. It's that we have no food.
Right.
And that was my reason. And when they shared their stories like that, it was so powerful. And then to share their story of coming from hopelessness of poverty into working middle class livable wages, and the pride that they have, and to be able to share that part of the story, it's just such a powerful piece. I think it's the only trauma-informed conference I know in the country that really embraces the poverty piece and really shares that out to truly understand what these parents are going through.
Right. Right. Well,
But
and I think that's what I learned so much about that. I worked at a mental health agency, and when being able to go into people's homes when we would do the home visits and see what these kids, what their home lives were, and yes, the poverty level, um, yeah, astounding. Yeah. And just then I kind of took a step back, like, oh my gosh, now I understand why this kid is struggling so much. And and then putting plans in place and working with the families to try to help this kid make it through seventh grade because he wanted to drop out, or similar stories. So yeah.
Another thing that I've seen, and it's painful, and I don't have an answer, but well, and the way I kind of am able to keep in touch with some of my alumni is I have them on Facebook, but I can tell by their posts, things aren't going well or so, and then I'll do a private message to them and say, hey, what's going on? It seems like you're going through a difficult time. And I've got alumni kids that are working those minimum wage jobs with families, and they're working really hard. They really have overcome a lot, and they're getting laid off. And I had one the other day say, Sporleder, I think I got an ulcer, and I can't sleep, and my hours are being cut back, and I'm afraid about my job, and man, that's real fear. And again, it's nothing that he's done. He hasn't done anything to get his hours.
Right.
And so I think, well, my heart goes out for those families that are in that situation now, and people who are in that situation where their jobs, and how am I gonna pay my rent? How am I gonna provide food?
Right. Right.
Wow, I mean, that's trauma.
I know.
And it's such a large group. Who do they turn to? Who do they have? And then
Right.
how do we get behind these folks and support them? Because obviously there's a lot we don't know or who are not connected, but just with some of my alumni kids, it's I can really see the stress.
Yeah. So what do they do? Do they reach out to local agencies then, or local churches, or local? I mean, obviously, is unemployment an option?
Uh, I the one thing in Walla Walla that's a given is that we have a food bank here that's very active and very much supported. So if people need food, we know that they can access food, and we know that nobody will go without a meal because we have several agencies in town that serve 2 meals a day. So
good.
So that part, we know people can eat, but there's so much more to that. There, gas money, bills, rent. And
Right.
so it's, for me, right now, it's just a little overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
I
know,
know. What do you, I'm like, I'm sitting here thinking, what are the options? What can these families do that are hurting? I mean, this is really truly impacting some people on levels that many of us just cannot comprehend.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then so I guess a solution is if you're going to the grocery store, check with your local food bank and see if they're in need of something, and then what their process is. Can you just drop it off, and obviously, not contact with a person, but just drop off a bag at the door and then call somebody and say, hey, I just dropped it off. Or I'm sure they have a process that they're working through right now with the virus going on and our lockdowns. But yeah, probably check with local food banks, or maybe local churches that might be helping families, or even the school systems, to say, hey, do you have kids or families that you're working with, and what can we do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, I think most of our schools are providing some way for kids to access their, I know we live just a few blocks away from one of the elementary schools. And so they have 2 hours for meal
Okay.
pickups. And so I've kind of heard that most of the lunches are, I think it's 360 or 370 lunches a day, and they might have 50 left.
Oh, wonderful.
I think
Oh,
the question is, because the school system is, what are we doing with the other 50?
yeah.
Because schools, normally those all go in the trash, and we need to, those are those things we need to be thinking through of how do we get that food to somebody.
Yes, so that it's not wasted.
We
Yeah,
know that.
because somebody needs it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So anything else that you wanted to touch upon in the self-care or other care, um, yeah, realm?
Through my own healing, gratitude has been something that I've been practicing now for the last 4 years. And for this time of quietness, trying to find gratitude in all things, and to understand there's valuable lessons sometimes through adversity, and rather than fighting it, which was my practice, to be grateful for what the lesson is, even though I may not know the outcome yet. That's been very helpful. But I'm also not in a situation where I'm worried about how I'm going to keep afloat right now. And so I can't, I just can't imagine those that are going through that,
Right. Yeah.
That's got to be so scary, so much fear.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, having grown up with parents that my dad struggled to keep his job, and my mom, she worked 6 days a week, but I remember hearing her sobbing and crying to my dad about, well, one of my most beautiful, actually treasured moments and memories was a Christmas when I was 5 years old and my sister was 2, and I could hear my mom crying, how are we going to provide, Christmas for the kids? And I didn't understand, because I was like, well, Santa will bring everything.
Mhm.
And but I could just hear her heartbreak. Well, we were so blessed because she had told a friend, and on Christmas Eve, Santa and a bunch of elves knocked on our apartment door and showed up with bags of groceries and gifts. And I just remember how my mom again was sobbing because of, with tears of relief and gratitude.
Uh-huh.
And that forever impacted Christmas as my favorite time of year because of that moment in time, because Santa showed up with my baby alive doll. So yeah, just very powerful. But yes, it's heartbreaking to think that people are hurting right now and struggling. And so it's kind of up to us as their community to make sure they're okay and reach out.
I think just through this discussion, I always think sometimes informal conversations kind of bring up sometimes the things that we're seeking or challenged with. Sometimes some of the best problem solving can happen through the informal conversations. And I think just in our conversation this morning, it just reminded me of I need to check Facebook a little bit more and check in and see how my kids are doing.
Yeah.
That I'm able to still have that contact with, and just really make the effort to make that connection. And if we all have people around us that we know that are struggling, if taking that time just to check in on them and see how they're doing. And we're all kind of hung up on this social distancing, that there really isn't any opportunity to have that facial contact. But we sure as heck can send them a message through Facebook, or if we have a phone number to call them and just let them know we're thinking about them. I want to make a note of that.
Yeah, it just popped into my head. I just thought, when I drop my stuff off to my mom that she needs, which I'm going to just drop at her door, I should go buy some bags of Hershey Kisses or so whatever, enough and just tell her just to walk around to all of her neighbors and just put it at their doors or something, and just be just something that would just maybe brighten someone's day. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's a really good idea. It just came to me. All right. Well, it's always just such a joy to talk to you. I love your spirit. I so appreciate the work you do in the world, and the impact you're having on children's lives. It's just very powerful and beautiful. So thank you.
And as I shared with you earlier, I'm so grateful that I'm grateful for your heart as well, and your passion, and this new opportunity to really branch out is exciting. To see this new journey opening up for you, and it'll be exciting to hear the exciting things that are out there for you and the lives that you're going to be touching. So thank you for that. That's huge.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I always touch my heart because I can feel my heart swell. It's like my heart smiling, but yeah, thank you for that. I'm very excited. I'm excited that the podcast continues to grow in its reach. And, I don't know if I had told you, I probably said it in the email, but my eyes popped open at 2:00 in the morning a couple of weeks ago, whenever I decided to do this. And it was as if I called it an angel whisper, but it was as if someone said, you need to do Facebook Lives and ask all of your past guests to come and just talk and these conversation between friends kind of talks, like over a cup of coffee. I need to have my cup of tea here with me. Because you're right. These are the kind of conversations, these casual conversations where we figure out solutions. Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoy it, and grateful for our friendship, and to be able to be on the journeys that both of us are on and support one another. And our target's the same. We're aiming for the same target, and we have different opportunities, and so
yeah, awesome.
Thankful for that.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. All right, everyone. And I haven't said this yet on live, so I should probably tell people, if you're interested in listening to more of these conversations, my past conversation with Jim and other amazing healers and those who are infusing hope into the world, you can listen in on Spotify, iTunes. I just recently found out the podcast is on Pandora Radio. YouTube, Deezer. I'm trying to think of some of the ones I did in Blueberry. So pretty much anywhere, if you Google the Healing Place podcast, you'll find it. And just some amazing conversations. And then also these Facebook Lives are on the Facebook page. You can go to the videos tab. So until next time, remember, as I say on the podcast, be gentle with yourself. All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.